It is so great to be here with you today. This is actually our third year in a row coming to Phoenix with a Cafecito Chat. Thank you so much for welcoming us. Thank you to Stephanie and Amor Collective and Ella for welcoming us. We're really excited to be here. And thank you all for joining us as we flex our poder, because we have lots of flexing to do, as we flex our poder to better ourselves, our community, and our familias, right? That's why we're here. We want to know what we want to do. My name is Charlotte Castillo. I'm a Dominicana from New York, but I feel very much aligned with all of you. And I'm the managing director of Poderistas, and I'm, again, thrilled, honored, humbled to be here. And welcome to our Cafecito Chat. This is the first stop of our series this year. Tomorrow we're going to be in Vegas. And later in October, we're going to be in Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania. And you'll hear those states. You're like, why those? We're like, because that's where Latinas are. And we want to motivate Latinas to go and make an impact and have their voices heard. So we're being really strategic about that. And this year's focus is power of our vote, right? Because we keep hearing it. We hear it in the news. But we have to continue to remind ourselves that we have the power to do it. We have the power to make an impact. Whatever impact you want to make, you have the power. And not just you, but your whole community and your amigas, the woman that you go into the gym with, the women that you do your little girls' night out with, you should also go vote with, right? These conversations that we're doing across the country really are highlighting and amplifying these key issues, because there are a lot of key issues that are on the ballot that really directly impact our community. So we want to make sure that you have the information, that we are amplifying the work of these amazing Latinas that are doing work right here, grassroots, for you, and that you have resources and tools to figure out what you can do, right? Beyond voting. Yes, there's voting, but there's a lot of other things. And at the same time, a big part of our mission is bringing us together, like something simple of bringing us together, because all the feedback we get when we do these events is like, I feel so powerful. I feel so seen. I feel so inspired when I'm in a room with other Latinas like me. Like, look around, look at these beautiful faces, all ages, all shades, all styles, all backgrounds. A lot of people, everyone tells us this is what we do. This is what we need more of. So this is a big mission for us as well. So thank you for being here and adding your energy to it. Our mission really is to help all Latinas really lean into their power. And we do that by celebrating you, by informing you, and hopefully motivating you to do that next step. Before we start this discussion, there's always a section for the sponsors. We would like to give mil gracias to our sponsor, Chispa, which I don't know if you guys are familiar. They're dating and social. Yeah. But, I love that they're like, no, yes, we're about dating. We're about connecting the community, but we're also about making sure our community gets heard and seen. So they showed up, they stepped up, and they're sponsoring the whole, the entire series. So please check Chispa out if that's what you're interested in. And we're, again, thrilled to be back at Amor Collective, who's always opened their arms really wide to us. Thank you so much, Stephanie. And I'm sure, America always has the best story, and you can tell it because I won't stay. But when we first launched, we had a real... No, I won't share it. But she has a great story about which story? The one about the woman that you met and she voted for And it was at Stephanie's Fair Trade Cafe. So we have a long history with Stephanie back from 2020. So thank you again. And Brittany and I, who's our editorial director, who's here, were invited, thank you so much, to an event that Amor Collective hosted last night. Again, bringing together Latinas, showing the amazing work, all the beautiful, the fashion. It was inspiring. It was beautiful. And this is the type of work that you all hopefully are supporting, right? And that's it. I don't want to talk anymore because there's so much great conversation. Let's get to this discussion. Oh, thank you. And you know what's funny about community? I just met this woman yesterday. I was at my hotel. We were across. It's like we saw each other from across. She's like, are you Boricua? And I was like, no. This is a true story. I'm like, no, I'm Dominicana. She's like, I knew it. And she came and sat next to me and we started chatting. And now we're like the best of buds. And now she's here. And she works in reproductive justice. And so it's like kismet, right? Like this is the community that we're so glad. I'm hoping that we'll continue to work together. But it's a funny story, but it's true. But now I am honored and humbled and always so happy to be in the presence of beautiful women, but of course of one of the co-founders of Poderistas, America Ferrera, who's brilliant. She's an actress. She's a producer, but most importantly, she's a Latina who wants to make sure that we get our voices heard. So America, I'm turning it to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlotte. I'm an actor who has to pretend a lot, and it's weird to hold a microphone that's not a microphone. Anyway, hi, hola. This is so exciting. I'm just remembering that our very first in-person Poderistas gathering was here in Phoenix at Stephanie's Fair Trade. And we launched in 2020. At the end of 2019, a number of us civically engaged Latinas were at a retreat, a bigger social justice retreat. And one of the things that came out of that was, the 2020 election. And we all didn't know what was going to happen at the beginning of 2020. But we started having the conversation that we have every time there's an election. This is the power of the Latino vote, blah, 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 the sleeping giant, blah, 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 Latinos will make a difference, blah, 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 blah. And yet, every time it comes to it, the next day headlines are, Latinos didn't show up. Latinos are still sleeping. And, we began talking amongst ourselves about who's coming for us, who's talking to our communities, who's engaging us, not just about our vote, but about our lives. You can't knock on our doors every 4 years with like a taco truck. I'll take the taco. And then say like, get out and vote. That's not how it works. This transactional relationship to our communities is not how we are going to empower each other. We need community. We need relationship. We need sustained engagement. And this is why myself and my co-founders, Elsa Collins being one of them, in late 2019 started dreaming and imagining Poderistas. What does community for us look like? How do we get together and give each other that feeling of pride and power when we're amongst others like us who understand what we fight for, what our experiences are, what's on the line for us? And so, we launched in 2020 online because that's the only way we could. And we had to sort of adjust our best well-laid plans, which was to come and be face-to-face with all of you. And it wasn't until before the election in 2020 that Elsa and I got to come out here and sit in person. And I remember there is this amazing story. I mean, we were all just so excited to be in front of people, period. But there was this amazing woman who stood up and said, and I moved to Arizona as an undocumented young person. And the first time I voted in this country was for myself. She got citizenship and then she ran for office. And right away, she didn't wait. She didn't sit around asking permission. She didn't wait for someone to tell her she was good enough. She got the right to vote and she put her name on the ballot. And the first time that she voted for herself. And we were all weeping in the room, so proud of her, so inspired by her. And that's why we come into these spaces, to be inspired by one another. Because what we know is we don't have to create power. We have power. We are power. But we don't get to see it. We don't get to be present with it. We don't get it reflected back to us in our culture the way we deserve to. So that's what this space is about. Getting to elevate and lift up and acknowledge all the power that's in this room, that we have in our community. And ultimately, how do we use that power? How do we harness that power to change the reality of our community's lives in this country and beyond? And so today, as everybody, I'm sure, is very aware, we're 39 days from a big election. Right. And as always, Latinos, especially here in Arizona, have the potential to decide the election. And so we wanted to come together with these incredible Latinas and with all of you in the room just to talk about what needs to happen between now and then. What's at stake? What are the issues driving our votes? And also what needs to happen between now and then so that the headlines the day after the election are Latinos decided the election.
Yeah.
So I'm thrilled to get to introduce this incredible panel. I don't know if we're sitting in the right order, so raise your hand when I say your name. Stephanie Maldonado, she's the organizing director at LUCHA, which is an org fighting for, yes, social, racial, and economic transformation for our families and our communities. Welcome, Stephanie. Viridiana, Viri Hernandez, she's executive director at Poder in Action. a grassroots org that is building power to disrupt and dismantle systems of oppression and determine a liberated future in Arizona through leadership development, civic advocacy, and community building. Welcome, Viri. We have Viany Olivara. She's executive director at League of Conservation Voters, working towards amplifying Latinx voices and to safeguard Arizona's environment for generations to come. Welcome, Viany. And my friend, my road dog for decades now, and one of my co-founders at Poderistas, who is also the founder of an incredible organization called This Is About Humanity, who is using her platform and influence to help get out the vote, but also to support the thousands of asylum seekers at the border of Tijuana and California. And I'm excited to hear her talk about that work today. So here is our amazing panel. So we're going to start with what I already talked about, which is what is the influence of the Latino vote here in Arizona? And what we know is that the Latino voter population has doubled since the year 2000 in Arizona. And while most Latinos claim to have a plan to vote, many of them have not yet made a firm commitment to actually do so. And Arizona has the power to change the trajectory of the election and also to shape what happens in the Senate, to shape what happens here at home in Arizona. And a lot of people believe that Arizona's Latino vote will very well decide the entire election the way it did in 2020 when Joe Biden won this state by a very, very narrow margin. And so I want to start with Stephanie. If you could, from your point of view, talk to us about what are we up against in terms of turning out the Latino vote here in Arizona, and what do you think needs to happen between now and Election Day to ensure that our voices are actually heard at the ballot box?
Yeah, well, thank you so much. Thank you both for being here in Arizona. And like you said, Arizona has 900,000 eligible registered Latino voters. And what that means, and I think that you mentioned this idea of a sleeping giant. I think Arizona has a long history of voter suppression. And I think over the last 15 years, we have been doing efforts to ensure that we are actively engaging, registering, updating voter registrations, ensuring that Latino communities, specifically Latinas, which make up a big part of the electorate here in the state, have access to the ballot. But also having the proper information, because there is a lot of misinformation, a lot of investment to really confuse voters. One of the things that I've said through my own work is I've been in community organizing work for the last 10 years. I came into this work because my mother is undocumented. My mom does not have the possibility to vote. She never will. And she left back to Mexico 12 years ago. And when that happened, that made me feel very confused, but it made me really angry. As why is there laws like these impacting people like me, my mom? My mom is not a criminal. My mom is someone who came to this country to fight for a better future. And for me, voting wasn't something that was talked about at the kitchen table. It wasn't something that my family instilled in me from a young age. But I remember knowing that people who have power are making decisions over my life. So that's what made me get involved. And I made the decision to get involved because I was tired of decisions being made for me, my family, and now my children without having a say in what happens. And I think that is the story of Arizona, of saying, ya basta. What do we need to do to ensure that we are getting people activated, but also informing them? So I think the work to be done from now until Election Day is to ensure that every single person, like even if you don't have the power to vote, we still have a lot of power. We have the power to influence, we have the power to educate, and we also have the power to motivate the people that we care about who have the power to show up and vote. We have from now until October 7th to register to vote. So we have days. So if you're not fully up to date on your voter registration, we have about a week now But then after that, we have the ability to show up and vote for the next 29 days after election. We can vote early in Arizona. So we have resources where people can actually learn one, how to fill out their ballot if they have questions, but two, we also have information on where they can drop off their ballots early, because we also have early voting here. So all of that to say is that 900,000 eligible Latinos, let that number sit with you. The election was determined by less than 10,000 votes in 2020. Some elections are being decided just recently, 39 votes. So every single vote matters. When you hear someone say, my vote doesn't matter, that's not true. That's what they want us to believe. So it's our job to remind people of our power and voting for ourselves, for our families, and for our bodies this election. So there's a lot at stake, and not voting is still voting. So if there's one thing I can just wrap it up and pass it back, is if you know someone right here, right now, that has the power to vote, text them and let them know that they have a few days to register if they're not registered, but they also have about a month to make a vote plan. And it's our job to ensure that those people that we care about and ourselves have a vote plan to show up and vote in numbers.
Stephanie, when is the voter registration deadline here?
October 7th.
October 7th. So just a couple of days. So that's a great call to action, is to text everyone you know and ask them if they're registered to vote, and let them know they only have a couple of days to register to vote. Thank you so much, Stephanie. I wanted to ask Viri, seeing as your organization focuses on disrupting and dismantling systems of oppression, talk to us about what you understand are the barriers to getting our community out to vote. When you're out there trying to develop leaders or get people engaged, what do you see as the things stopping our community?
When we talk about, thank you for that question. When we talk about, systems, it's like this big word, right? A little bit of jargon, but you're talking about people worrying every day about, can I pay rent? Can I put food on the table? And all of these ways that our communities, especially Black and Brown communities and working class people, are surviving. And I think that is such a piece of the barriers that we have seen. And there's a lot, like Stephanie said, systemic barriers. I don't know if y'all remember in 2012, when we were getting people out to vote, that was a huge campaign against Arpaio, who was the sheriff that used to hunt our communities, used to hunt immigrant families. And there were, MCSO and police patrols in a lot of polling locations. And MCSO, the sheriff's office, they don't patrol those polling locations. So we're calling, we're pressuring, like, why are there a lot of sheriffs, right? Like these intimidation, like very real tactics, and the departments were telling us, oh, people, they're just resting, they're taking their lunch break. We're like, get out of the polls, right? So we have those systemic, like those very real tactics that we've seen to intimidate people. But then you also just have the reality that, when there's policies not shifting, people are getting disillusioned and are getting frustrated. I don't think it's apathy, and I don't think young people, I don't think it's that they don't want to vote. I think there is a sense of like, y luego qué, right? Like exactly why we can't just show up every 4 years, every election cycle, and why organizations that are organizing our community to change people's conditions. So we organize in West Phoenix and South Phoenix. Our zip codes in those areas, we're expected to live 14 years less than 10 miles north of us. Mm-hmm. Not only are we expected to live less, but our quality of life is lesser. Higher rates of asthma, right? But our communities is where the junk sites are open. Our communities is where they're burning tires. Our communities is where these policies were put in place. And so for us at the doors, it's helping people connect. Like this is what's happening. And we have the power to do so. We have the power to change this. And we take a family approach. So, a lot of times people go knock the door to the voter, and the voter's not there, they keep going, right? A lot of us, we are like, okay, you're his mom? Okay, mamá, vamos a hablar, like your son needs to vote. Or you're the grandma, abuela, like your grandkid needs to vote. The minors, like your mom needs to vote, right? And so talking to the family as a whole, because we are a very familial That's one of our core values. I think that's where a lot of our power comes from. So there's, from the systemic things, but also the very real things that are happening. Arizona's #1 in evictions. Maricopa County's #1 in evictions. We are over 112 degrees this week. It's October, right? Like all of these very real things. We have the highest rates of death. We have the highest rates of homelessness than we have seen, right? And so people are in this place of like, I just need to see, and like a veces nos abruman tanto, like they overwhelm us. These systems overwhelm us that you don't even have space to think about, oh, I'm gonna go vote, or the federal and all of that. So for us, it has really been about talking about the local elections. We engage heavily on school board, on city councils, like because they're deciding our parks, they're deciding our streets, they're deciding what's happening in the schools. So helping folks see that they are powerful, that they've tried to make us believe that we're not, but that if we weren't powerful, all of these voter disenfranchisement wouldn't be happening. We have a lot of ballot initiatives right now that are going to make it harder to vote, harder to participate, harder to put forth our laws, right? If our vote really didn't matter, then this attack wouldn't be happening. So, and people see that, and I think then in there, the hope is there, right? And then I think as long as we can reignite and hold each other in that hope, we can then, we then move to actually take action. I heard someone, maybe last week, I don't remember where, but they were like, hope is a motherfucker. And I was like, damn, like that resonated, because sometimes it's so hard to have hope. But I think holding each other as community, talking to each other, letting each other know, like, shit is hard. This is one thing we can do, but then showing up as people, like showing up as community. So those are
Well, I want to thank you so much for the work that you do, because it is the wicked cycle that those most, as you said, overwhelmed by the system, too overwhelmed to engage with the system and have their voices heard, or as you said, just disillusioned with it, are the ones who stand to be the most impacted by the decisions that come out of these elections. And that connection, that understanding, that hope, that inspiration, that's not something anyone outside of our community is coming to give us. They come to us every 4 years to get our vote. But to really stay in a sustained dialogue with our community and to say, do you see how we're impacted by this? That's what works and what gets us out. And so thank you for doing that work. And it is the work that we all, in some way or another, need to find a way to do in our circles of influence. How do I keep connecting the impact of the decision making to my community so they understand checking out, as hard as it is to stay engaged, even for the best of it, right? Like even those of us who are the most privileged, it's hard to stay connected. Never mind those who, as you say, are worried about how they're going to keep the lights on and the water running. So thank you so much for that work. You briefly mentioned the temperatures in October here. And I think that's a perfect segue to Viany to talk about, climate change and climate and conservation, as you say. I'm deeply interested in how this issue lands with our community. What do you know about, how we're impacted and whether or not those connections are being made? And is this an issue that can turn out Latino voters? Is this something that is at top of mind for our community?
Yes, well, that's a great question. And it's VNA. Sorry.
Oh,
VNA, like DNA.
DNA.
Yes. And it's a difficult one. Like the vet, from people from Mexico, like the las mantas, yeah, like that. Well, yes, it's so heartbreaking to be here right now and know that we have this record-breaking heat because it's not normal. For folks who have lived here in the States, I think you all have seen every summer we get the same news. It's like record-breaking heat, and with that comes record-breaking utility bills, record-breaking electricity bills, record-breaking water bills, right? I know there's folks in our community who are paying now up to $700 a month to keep their AC going. And in a state like Arizona, especially in Phoenix, one cannot afford to not have the AC running, right? We cannot afford to not have a space that's cool for us because it's so deadly to be living in this space. So I do think and the polling has shown that Latinos deeply care about our environment, deeply care about our conservation. And we also have a deep connection because of our own heritage and history, right? We come from countries that are being exposed to levels of climate change that are enormous, like Puerto Rico, right? Like the South, the global South is being exposed to these impacts of climate change that's honestly created by the North, right? By big polluters like the United States, like Russia, like China. So there's this connection that we have with our climate history and how it connects with, our climate history and an immigration history is connected, is intersectional. And every polling that we've seen shows that Latinos are some of the biggest supporters of climate change action, right? Action at a federal level, action at a local level. And for what we talk about in our organization, which is actually Chispa Arizona, is what it's called, but we're a program of the legal conservation voters.
Chispa, Arizona.
Yes.
Not to be confused with the dating app.
Not to be confused, but we do get asked sometimes, and we're like, sorry, that's not us. Yes, but we are cute, yes. You can find love in Chispa Arizona too. There has been, But anyways, I think we are so deeply motivated by climate change, but I don't think Latinos understand it as climate change policy, right? Because the environmental movement has for a long time been perceived as a very white and affluent space. But in reality, we all care about it because we care about our water, we care about the earth, we learn how to grow plantitas in our homes, right? We care about recycling our water containers. All of that are aspects of environmentalism that is cultural to us. So when people are looking at all what is in the pile of this cycle, it is very much what kind of person am I going to have around me? What is the impact of water, right? In a state that is fighting for water every single summer and every single year. We're in a fight with multiple states for the Colorado River. We're in a fight for affordable housing. And how does that housing, how it's being built, impact, your electricity bills? What does that look like, right? And there has been historic investments from this administration to solve some of that. And we need to make sure that we keep going and more because we are at the front lines of the climate crisis. We're seeing it right now. And I think everybody knows and understands and feels worried. But to Viri's point and to Stephanie's point, I also know that people are struggling to just make it meet sense, right? To just buy their groceries, pay rent, pay their utility bills. Your utility bill is going to be in this ballot. So it's very important to know and understand what we're voting for because all aspects of the ballot will have a direct impact to our families.
Wow. I want to vote for you. To that point, we know that voting, like you said, our utility bills are on the ballot. Wow. I want to text that now to everybody. But what outside of election cycles, what can we do to keep pressure on elected representatives and as you said, to raise our voices so they're aware that this is an issue that our community cares about? What are the ways of keeping that pressure on? Sure. Yeah. Yes, I'd love for you to answer.
Oh, there's so many ways. So all of these organizations here do year-round organizing. What that means is they were looking at the state, we're looking at the city, we're looking at the corporation commission, we're looking at the school boards, and we're present tracking bills, tracking legislation, tracking policy, tracking the budget of the city, and we're making sure that they're not getting away with things that do not reflect the community's interests. But our power is in people, in showing up to these meetings, in showing up to the city, in writing the petition, in making the call, right? And in empowering our community. All of us do leadership development, right? Which means making sure that everybody who joins us understands that what is the level of the power, how they can access it. And everybody is a working person. You can't go to every meeting, especially when they put it at 10 a.m. on a Wednesday, purposely, so you don't show up. But we all make ways and access points for everybody to be engaged at the level that they can, for people to access information, for you to be in community, right? At Chispa Arizona, for example, we do gardening classes, we do hikes, we do cleanups, because we also want people to feel like it all can feel so doom and gloom, especially when it comes to the environment, economy, to systems of oppression. But it's important also to make connections and relationships with people. So we also know that when we're showing up to these spaces, you're not showing up alone. You're showing up in community with each other.
Amazing. I love that. There's just right here in the room, there's so much to plug into, as you said, year round, and to not, to not just cast our ballot and go away for 4 years and come back, but to really engage with these issues. And as you say, build community. As you say, the numbers support exactly what you're saying, which is that 70% of Latino voters in Arizona have said they are concerned with climate change. This is a Latino issue. And the other thing that you also mentioned is how it intersects with all the other issues that we care about, one of them being immigration. And one of the most recent polls showed that immigration was the top issue for almost a third of Arizona voters. And so I'm curious about this intersection of the issues on our community. And Elsa, I'd love for you to speak to, the amazing work you do with This Is About Humanity, but also how you've seen the issue of climate change and other issues exacerbate or impact the issue of immigration at the border.
Yeah, well, thanks for that question. It's interesting because a lot of the work that I do is bringing people together, bringing people closer to the issue. We go to the border, we visit these families, we hear their stories. And a lot of times when people are hesitant about coming, they're like, well, immigration's really not my issue. I'm like, okay, well, do you care about climate change? Do you care about LGBTQ issues? Do you care about the economy? Because all of those things are very, very intertwined with immigration. And so, in 2020, according to the UN, over 30 million people were migrating because of climate issues, which was more than 3 times the amount of individuals that were migrating for war and violence put together. And so I think it's something that we absolutely have to be tracking. And when we're talking to these families, yes, some of these families are escaping horrific persecution and gang violence and intimidation that's happening at home. But they're also unable to grow their crops. They're unable to sustain their livelihoods. And so I think it's really important to be connecting these issues and bringing them together, because we can then engage people in a way that doesn't seem so singular. Like if this is not their jam, they're not really going to get involved. And I'm like, no, we need you to be involved. And I think that's one of the things that I love so much about the work that I get to do at This Is About Humanity, because sometimes, if someone is coming on a trip and I've engaged them in that way, it's a great way to bring them into other issues, and to bring them into this community of just participating in things that are affecting not just Latinos, but really, really the world.
And another thing that I love about what you do is something mentioned earlier. It's it doesn't all have to be doom and gloom. So much of what Elsa does in her organization is celebrate these humans who have been through so much. She throws birthday parties for the kids who were, in detention when they missed their birthdays, quinceañeras, Christmas parties. There is the fight, and there's also the love that is not being shown to our community, which is our responsibility to reach out with love and to reach out with humanity. So I will toot your horn, since you're not very good at tooting your own, which is what we do for our sisters. So as you can see there, this is right here is just what a stunning example of stunning examples across the board of what's always possible, the work that is always needing to be done, that we can plug into, that we can plug our friends and our community into. So we're going to open it up now for some questions. If anyone has questions for anyone on the panel, raise your hand and am I picking? This is always so political. I'm not in charge. Charlotte's going to pick.
Oh, thank you. One of the areas that you brought up earlier was talking about getting our youth involved. And I myself have a son who just turned 18, and I'm trying to delicately talk to him about this without trying to skew him or, put him in under duress with the situation, but he's not ready for it. And my question is, what would you guys suggest? I actually was more meaning you because you brought that up. What would be your suggestion to tell our youth, or maybe even our 18-year-olds who can register right now and have like a week left, like you said? What's your recommendation to get them educated and involved?
Yeah. Young people. Okay, yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's a lot happening with Gen Z is the most politically active generation, y'all, than we've ever seen, ever. There's an expectation of young people to show up at certain levels, and past generations have stayed the same. Young people have surpassed that in the first generation of Gen Z that voted. And so I think there's a lot of connection. They're seeing a lot of issues. I've seen, I think, with my brother and my sister's 19, my brother's 16, is talking, I asked my sister, when she turned 18, our family's been impacted by immigration. I grew up undocumented my whole life, so she's seen me vote through people. Like, I've motivated thousands of people to vote. And she was just very overwhelmed. She's like, there's just so much, and I don't know. And I was like, well, baby, why are you not going to register, And we talked through that. We talked about, like, well, what do you care about, right? And then in that, we started being able to connect. Okay, well, that gets decided here. Or what are you thinking about? She was like, well, now she has to pay rent. So the bills, she was like talking about the bills. I was like, oh, actually, the ACC. I was like, the Arizona Corporation Commission decides that here. So I think that's one piece, but also getting connected to spaces. Maybe just, hey, would they be willing to come and listen to other young people, talk about the issues impacting them? But I do believe that young people are probably the most politicized we've seen in a long time. So I'm sure your son, like, it's there, or ha visto muchas cosas, and it's just more about, like, helping them make the connections. And then sometimes we're not the best messengers, right? The mom might not be the best messenger. So, a lot of our organizations are doing a lot of outreach. So, we are, I know Polita in Action and ACE and Chispas. So I'm like, okay, where's your son? Can our young people reach out, right? Like, a lot of that peer-to-peer connection. But I do think that he probably has something he cares about, and it's just not sure, and it's maybe overwhelmed. This year's ballot, y'all, is going to be 4 pages long. It's going to be an overwhelming ballot. So imagine you're 18 and you're getting this 4 pages back, all these propositions, that's just scary. And it feels overwhelming, right? And so we're really trying to make sure that information is out, that we're explaining what these propositions are, why each race matters, why local matters. But it is going to be hard, and your community, your family, encourage them, but they're probably going to be overwhelmed because they're like, está bien largo, no sé, I don't want to do this. So I'm going to, for the first time, I'm a voter for the first time. I could vote now. So, I met Stephanie when I was undocumented, and I've just been doing this work for a long time. But now I'm like, okay, bringing our families together, right? And maybe the thing you have to do with your son is just get them to register. Be like, you can make those decisions later, but like, we haven't talked October 7th. Can you at least register? Right? And then once they're on the register list, we'll hit them up. We're all going to hit them up.
And the only thing I would add to all the brilliant things she just said is that we are in the habit of, like, using fear as the only tactic, using the doom and gloom and getting stuck in what's wrong and what's bad. When if we give our young people a positive experience of getting involved and try in some way to lift it out of politics, of like, this is who you should vote for, this is how you should feel. Instead, finding some way to give them an experience of community. Okay, we're going to do the park cleanup. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, all of us, when we do something to engage in community, it feels good. And like, teaching that way of giving an experience that engagement feels good and feels like community, especially if other young people are there, might be another tactic to take. Question.
Hi, everyone. Oh, this is not a speaker. Hi, everyone. I'm Adina Gabriella. I'm from South Florida. I ended up here, funny enough, but I'm so happy I did. My question, I work with a Reproductive Health Access Project. And so our organization is a national nonprofit. We support family physicians to integrate more reproductive health care into their practices. And so because we are national, every state, it's a different situation. I'm based in Florida. But what I would say, I guess my primary question, so I'm the senior program coordinator in organizing and advocacy, and we really are here to support clinicians explore advocacy. And so I guess one of the questions I've been having, because all of you are organizers in your own spaces in your own right, you as well, America. And so I'd love to hear from all of you very, not so long, but what, I guess, advice do you have to continue to show up and serve and do this work sustainably? Because it's draining, right? Folks get burnt out. You get exhausted. And so I guess I'd love to hear from everyone just like a tip of how you continue to do this work.
I can start. One of the things, as I said, that I love doing the most is bringing community. I think we're all like kind of natural organizers, but as you said, it can be very exhausting. So I think my very fast tip would be find a friend who can do this work with you. America and I have been on elections since 2008. We actually tried to send photos of us on the road the other day, right before we were going to come here, like reminiscing, but impossible to do it alone. Like, there's no way she or I would be motivating to get out, get on a plane, be in the heat, knock on doors, talk to people, go to field offices. That is the work of friendship, of community, which is why these organizations are so amazing, because you can find those friends, you can find those road dogs, those warriors who are going to support you. And even, I think, like a year and a half ago, America and I were in DC together, and even we were listening to Justice Sotomayor talk about how you can't do it alone, and you have to like find that person who, when you're like tired, they're going to pick you up, and then it's going to be their turn and they're going to pick you up. So my advice would be find a good friend.
Yeah, so I can share. I came into this work when I was 19 years old. I am now a mom of two. I just had my second baby 5 months ago. And I think when I came into this work, I had no responsibility other than like, I'm trying to fight and I'm gonna do everything that I can. And now fast forward years later, I have two children that I have to always make sure I put them to bed every night. And I think that what inspires me and reminds me every day is like, I think about what my future looked like when I was little. It didn't look very bright, but I was given the different tools and resources to ensure that I had a better future. And I think that what keeps me inspired and reminded is that one, not doing it alone really, really, really is important, because I know I have an extension and lineage of amazing women who have been leading. And I think two, as a mom, I've seen a lot of moms leave this type of work because it is very exhausting and it is very hard, because some days I have 13-hour days. But I think what grounds me and reminds me is that I want Ivy and Isaí to have the best future ever, and not just them. I want Isadora to have an amazing future. And I think that it's up to me to do that for them, and it's up to Nubia to do that. It's up to Liz to do it for her two sons, right? So I think that that's what reminds me and grounds me every day. And I think mujeres chingonas, jefa siempre, like that's my theme, that's my motto. And women have changed Arizona, and I think who better to do it than women and mothers who love so hard and are so committed. And I think that's what inspires me and reminds me of you two amazing mothers and mujeres that are leading and kind of paving the way. So I think that's what inspires me and reminds me. And when my cup is getting a little low, I go and sit in Ivy's room and I play with her, and I'm like, yeah, I think every kid should have a better future. Like, that I'm part of building that future.
I'm sorry to applause. I'm sorry. I was a bad moderator and forgot a very big question, but thank you for reminding me that we have to talk about reproductive rights. I wore the shirt and everything, and I still forgot. I'm a mom of two. Don't blame me. Okay, so here's the deal. The vast majority of Latinos and Latinos here in Arizona believe that no matter what their personal beliefs are, that it is wrong to take the right and access to reproductive rights away from people and to make that a decision of the government. The ability to protect rights here in Arizona is on the ballot. And I know we have to talk about how Latinas are the largest group of women of color impacted by the current and future state abortion bans. So I would love to hear from our local organizers what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what's happening in our community, and how we can stay engaged with this conversation and use this conversation as a tool of engagement.
Yeah, you want me to take it? And then you can take it too. And you can take it too. It impacts all of us. Yes, so we have an amazing opportunity to put in Proposition 139, right? That's the number?
139.
Yes. So Proposition 139 is precisely to combat this abortion ban that has happened in Arizona, right? After, the Supreme Court decision was super intentional to take away our free will and ability to choose and the protection, for abortion rights. And what we're hearing at the doors, honestly, is that this is on top of mind of everybody. It's cost of living and it's abortion, constantly. People know, and Latinos know. I know Latinos, we come from Catholic countries, there's a lot of heavy history there, from our moms, our grandmas, our tias, about abortion. And still, our families believe that we should have this choice, that the government should not be making these decisions for us. It should be up to us. So Latinos are actually very pro-choice, and they believe in this. We just gotta make sure that they come out and they vote, because it can be very confusing. It's one of these ballots propositions that's gonna be on the last page, mixed into the dozens others. Right? So everybody needs to know what number it is and to vote yes. And that's all they need to know. But everybody needs to do it. Yes, like a cheat sheet.
What can we do? What can those of us in the room today do to spread information about the proposition and in our communities? What's something we can do today?
Well, you can look up the organization, the Abortion Ballot Initiative. They're doing an amazing campaign. There's events every single time. And I actually pass it to Viri because she's in the executive committee in that campaign.
Yeah, so vote yes on Prop 139, 100%. But also talk to your family. They have a great social media page where there's information. You can just share information. But also, if you've had an abortion or if you've moved from this issue, talk to your family, talk to each other. My grandma was like, no, right? My family's very mixed status. So my grandma was a resident and then became a citizen. I was still undocumented. And, there is still these hard conversations that need to happen. And, my grandma was like, no, es que no, mija, es que no podemos votar por el aborto. And, I had engaged with her and I shared my story. I can't have kids. And when I found that out, I was telling my grandma, I was like, I just remember that heaviness. Oh, I don't think I've shared this much. Of having no choice, there's just no choice. And I was talking to her about that. And I was like, we deserve a choice, and there's people who have a choice and we should be able to choose. And, now she's like, sí, okay, pues, llénalo. And, sign the petition. But 1 of every 5 voters signed the petition. So this is huge. We can win, but we have to show up. We got it all there already. Now we need to show up. One thing we're doing a big election on a city council, a race in in the Phoenix. But we're looking at some numbers there, and there was a 43% drop off on the ballot. And what does that mean is that people voted top of the ballot, federal president, but they didn't vote. They dropped off from the propositions. We can't let that happen, and a huge part of those voters, over 50% of that 43% was women. And so we're like, and in that district is majority Latinas as well. So we have to talk, we have to spread this information, post about it, text your friends, vote yes, host party, you know, to like, hey, we're gonna vote together, because actually it's gonna be confusing and overwhelming. So bring people in, hit up our organizations if you want us to go and help y'all fill out ballots and your family, right? I think there's a lot of, that's where the power is in those relationships with each other. So we not only, I think earlier we said we have the power, you know, we have power, but we also have the power to win. We can win this. And so let's win it. We are 39 days from the end of election, but voting starts October 9th. Ballots mail October 9th. So voting starts in 11 days, y'all. So people are going to start filling it out. And if they're filling out the top and skipping Prop 139, right, that's what we need. You have nine days to take action to get an event going. But that's what I would say to that.
Just check with one more question.
So I am an abortion activist here in Arizona. So I am fighting in the communities for the young Gen Z. And the difficulty that I've been having here is the reach to the older generation, to the traditional generation. It's very sad that a lot of that age group and even young gentlemen are against abortion. They want the pro-life. So what would you recommend as a different perspective, a different way to go ahead and demonstrate to them that this is literally, this is our right. It's in our backyard. It's happening in our backyard right now, where we don't want these rights to be taken away. This is our body, our choice. And I am tired. I'm tired of having to explain that to these men, to that age group, for them to understand that this is a choice that should be given to us women. And I seek advice. Because like you said, we have 9 days. I'm out there putting my voice as much as I can. But how do I be able to go ahead and change their mindset, to be able to recognize, to be able to see the importance of this prop?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I think to that question of like, how do you go through, especially when you keep hearing no's and, you know, you have to explain our humanity. We have to explain why we deserve to have a choice. It's been really, it can be really hard. Our canvas, you know, a lot of our young people are canvassing, knocking doors, talking to moms, to grandmas. And it's been funny in the role playing, they straight up are like, you don't think we have a choice to decide if our health is at risk, right? So there is that, right? There is the trying and explaining that this isn't about abortion as how people say it. This is about me as a human. Do I have a choice to decide over my body or over my life? And then, you know, once we can't move it, we always spend a few minutes, right? And if we can't move them, we keep going, because you know what? There's more that will say yes. So like, let's count that a no. If we really can't move them, let's count it as a blessing, because we can move forward and go find the next yes. And so that for me has been like, when I leave some of the conversations and I'm like, dang, I couldn't, like, how could I not get this person to move? You know, and then I go to the next person. And sometimes, you know, I'm like, okay, well, thank you. I'm looking for your son too. I'm looking for your daughter too. And I'll go talk to the next person in that same house sometimes. And so there are these mixed conversations in the household. So I think similar to me and mi abuela and my tias and all the conversations we've had over the year, it had like, someone might have that. We might not be the messenger, right? You might not be the messenger, but can one of their daughters deliver the message? Can one of their loved ones deliver the message? Y hasta les tienen más paciencia, right? Because there's some of these I'm like, I don't got to deal with this. I'm going to go find that yes. So, you know, with each other, like, let's have those hard conversations, but also, you know, at times it's like, cool, I'm not going to keep wasting my time. If you've been trying and they're just, sometimes I'm like, cool, let me go find the next yeses. Because 1 out of 5 voters signed this petition, and we need to make sure that they all know how to vote on it and how to show up.
Yeah. I'm sure. And I would just add to that, it's important to remember that changing minds and changing culture doesn't happen in an instant. And they may not change their mind right in that moment while you're having that conversation with them, but your conversation is one more drop in that bucket for them. you know, how many times do we have to be asked to do anything before we're like, oh, okay, I'll go do the thing, you know? So it's another 7 times. Is that the number? You have to be asked 7 times. Okay. So then that's how we keep the hope. We remember like, okay, maybe I'm number 1, maybe I'm number 6, maybe I'm not the 7th person to ask, but I'm gonna keep doing the work and knowing that you're not the only one out there doing the work, staying connected. What an amazing, incredible conversation. What an amazing group of women doing such important and impactful work. There's so much was said today about how we can engage. Important reminders that we have a couple days to get people registered. We have 9 days till 11 days till voting begins. So once voting begins, then the message is you can vote now. You don't have to leave work on election day. Don't leave it to the last minute. Don't stand in the lines. Vote now. So from now until then, we have our work to do and work cut out for us. And this is an incredible place to start, is right here with these amazing local organizers who I'm sure are happy to keep pointing you to resources. And so first of all, let's give a round of applause to our amazing piano. And now we want to turn you all towards each other, for you to have conversations at your table around your reflections of what was discussed up here and what's on your mind and how do you want to spend the next 39 days so that you can wake up the day after the election and feel like I did what I could do, because you know, none of us want to wake up to terrible news feeling like I could have done more, right? So let's get out there and do what we can do. And so right now, let's open up the conversation and turn towards each other. And there are on your tables these framed prompts for conversation if you want to go to those, and maybe you don't need them.
Come back.
And then we're going to come back after your how much time do we have for conversation? Ooh, 15, 20? Okay.
10 people.
Okay. So we'll be back. Enjoy your conversations. Thank you to the panel.
I just wanted to thank our panelists once again. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing and for coming today. And I want to thank each and every one of you for showing up, because that's really the first step, is just showing up. So you guys have already done that. Now that you're here, you're inspired, you're motivated to take action. Most importantly, to get out and vote. You guys, and America, I will say this to her to her face, and she says it as well. She is actually not the most influential person in this room. It's each one of you. You are the most influential person to your community, to your group of friends, to your family. America can say go vote. They can be like, yeah, thanks, ugly Betty. But if you say get out and vote, they respect you. Your family looks up to you. Some of us were that first generation. We were the translators. We were the people who were helping our parents. We were filling out the forms. We were signing our own permission slips. We were doing all of those things. And so now that we're the generation of people who are impacting our younger folks in our community, we're the ones who are going to be kind of like saying, hey, come on, let's go. Let's make this fun. Like you were saying, we were talking about how complicated voting is. You know, Eva and I, who vote in California, we look at the ballot together, and we're highly engaged Latinas. And we sit there and read, and we're like, wait, is this a yes or is this a no? Like, it's written to be that way. And so a lot of times saying, hey, abuelita, prima, tío, nos juntamos todos y lo hacemos juntos. Let's do it together. Let's not have it be, and Arizona is such a great state because you get to vote by mail. And as we heard, October 7th is the last day to register to vote. And as we also heard, 2 days later is the first day you can start to vote. So we always say, we used to say the election is November 5th. That's the last day of the election. Here in Arizona, the election starts on the 9th. So mail-in voting, ballots must be postmarked by October 7th, 1 full month before the election. Note, this is a huge change from last year when it was just 1 week before the election. As I said, early voting begins on October 9th, ends on November 1st, 4 days before the election. So if you don't get your mail-in ballot by November 1st, you're going to have to go drop it off by November 5th. Okay, to check your voter status, guess what? Our Power Portal is on a QR code here at the table. You can check your registration status right now. Send that link to your friends, put it on your stories, tag Poderistas, tag all these amazing orgs that we heard from today. Chispa for AZ, we had ACE, Poder in Action, okay? So these are all the orgs that we have. So sometimes you think you're registered, guess what? Sometimes they kick you off, so check it. Okay, finally, and this is just as important as the first few steps, pick at least 5 of your amigas who are not in this room, okay? And make sure that they go onto the Power Portal and check those steps as well. Make it a party, like I just said. Set up a Zoom. Go to a coffee shop. Guess what? Get dressed up. Come to Amor Collective. Buy some candles. Check out your ballot. Hang out. All of those things. Okay. Thank you guys so much. Muchísimas gracias por estar aquí, por dar su día, su tiempo, and all the work that you're going to be doing in these next 39 days. Have a great day. Go vote.